You know, some people might say that theatre's going through a very difficult time. Not only is it very expensive now to visit the theatre, whether it's Broadway, the West End, or up and down the country, or wherever you are, literally, in the world, it's an expensive night out. It should be, of course, a pleasurable night out, but there's always now seemingly something going wrong. Now, I have my own theory on this, but I wanted to explain this to you, chums, to see what you think. And has this ever really happened to you? You see, what's fascinating is this. We've had two incidents that have been reported in the press. And basically, this is all to do with unruly audience members. But the bigger problem could be simply this. The celebrated comedian Peter Kay was recently performing to a sellout audience, but he had to stop the show simply because there were some unruly audience members, basically shouting out some of his taglines in advance, you know, the sort of thing. But of course, eventually security came and took them away, and this made all the major newspapers, including a follow-up interview with a person who apparently that Peter had been rather unkind about. She seemingly didn't take too offence to it. And then a couple of days later, we had this situation. This was up at the Manchester Opera House for a brand new musical called Here You Come Again, based on a fun lifestyle one-man show with Stephen Webb, all about the brilliant Dolly Parton. Now, when you go to a musical like that, you truly know exactly what you're going to. No two ways about it. But you see, these two productions got major headlines. Now people are talking about them and talking about audience members, all of that sort of stuff. But who truly is to blame? Now, of course, what they're saying is, in one instance, that they were offended because there was a gay character inside the Dolly Parton musical. Right. And the other one was the fact that apparently this man had waited a long time to see his comedy hero, Peter Kay, and suddenly, for some explicable reason, decided that he wanted to be part of the fun. I would suggest that part of the problem is simply this. In a desperate bid to rake in as much money as possible, have you noticed now how they encourage you not only to have drinks before the arrival, very expensive drinks I might point out, but of course you're now allowed to take them into the auditorium too, if they're plastic cups, you know, plastic pots and all that sort of stuff. But once you invite alcohol inside the auditorium, people then become rather loose-lipped. Now here's where it gets more confusing, because quite frankly the bar remained open for the duration. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that this particular story was perhaps placed out there to get some kind of publicity, you know what I'm saying? But by a result of this very, well, shall we say, adverse behaviour by a couple of audience members, this apparently now has triggered off not one story, but a number of them that are now apparently happening up and down the country throughout our theatres. As I said, you know, in the old days when you arrived at the theatre, yes, you could buy a drink, but you weren't encouraged to take them into the auditorium. You weren't allowed to pop out in the interval to refresh yourself and top up either. And likewise, you weren't encouraged to buy another drink too much after the interval. But this is all now triggered, some people might say, by allowing the audience to do exactly what they want. Of course, when you're charging top prices, it's very difficult to dictate to the audience by saying no more allowed. It's their choice, their decision. It's a little bit like now people filming these productions in full on their phone and placing them online. If you're going to charge £150 a ticket, can you really dictate to the audience when they become unruly? Either way, this now seemingly is becoming something of an epidemic, and more importantly, theatre bosses are now pondering exactly how to curtail it. What do you think, chums? Neil Sean, Waterloo Station, London.